What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Tournament Tactics Live. I'm adding live on because we're not doing everything live anymore. So gotta add that on. This is the show where we break down tournament strategies for NFL Week 1. We're going to talk primarily DraftKings. We'll talk a little bit of FanDuel as well. And with me to break it all down, the Quad Goat community. We've got multi-time Millie Maker winner right here, BobbyWow. What would BobbyWow do? Author extraordinaire, published, winning the $1 million game, Burns. To my right, GPP contrarian mind, multi-time tournament winner, Bob226, aka Josiah, right to my left or right. I'm not really sure. It's like a mirror when you're looking in the camera. Can't tell. So, welcome back for the 2023 NFL season, NFL Week 1. I'm excited. Great to have you guys back with me. And ton of content been churning out. But BobbyWow, I have to say, you're already spitting fire on the showdown break. If anybody who did not watch the showdown breakdown last night, all I have to say is, here's BobbyWow screaming about Josh Reynolds. Josh Reynolds. You got to play Jay Rizzles. Forget about old man Marvin Jones Jr. What happens? Advantage is like, oh, Josh Reynolds, you say, sir. 100K winner. That's how it begins.
And the DS was all over Bell, so it just worked out.
Yeah, the Dom Station loved Bell, jammed him in all your lineups. If you didn't stop it from doing that,
yeah,
I mean, you had to stop it. So, you know what? Here we go. And so it begins another season of crushing. So great call, BobbyWow. That was awesome. Congrats to Advantage on $105,000 first game of the season win. Are you shitting me?
Unreal. What a way to start.
Love to see it.
If you're not signed up at DFS Army, what are you doing? Promo code NFL23, 15% off. That's live until kickoff. You've got like 2 days left. Description below. Click the link. NFL23, 15% off. It locks in for life. Now, boys, Moneybags, he knows what's up. That's right. And week 1 is tricky, guys. And I put my cheat sheet together, so I need the help of the round table here. I want to talk about what are we doing in these tournaments. I put my cheat sheet together. There's a lot of possibilities, but I think the biggest concern for me is just that it's unknown. New teams, new players. Week 1 offense is a little weird, a little bit off. You know, not quite clicking. It takes a couple weeks. We saw last night with the Chiefs that, hey, there's a little Super Bowl hangover that goes on. A team that looked amazing last year could look kind of pedestrian. We don't know the usage. All of a sudden, Rashee Rice is getting all the touchdowns and who, you know, a lot of mysteries week 1. And I think the chalk kind of reveals that. There's not that much chalk this week. It's really weird. As of right now, as I look at industry-wide ownership projections, our ownership projections, no one wants to take a stand yet. Everybody's kind of like, every QB is under 10%. Right now, Sam Howell is popping as the highest projected ownership QB, and I promise you, that is not going to be what happens on Sunday. There's no way it's going to be Sam Howell. So let's get into it, guys. And we're going to go around, and I want to get from each of you. Let's start with our QB, wide receiver stacks, game stacks, team stacks. Give me some of your favorites for the Millie Maker this Sunday. And I use the term Millie Maker to describe the generality of any contest that's got more than 5,000 entries. I don't care if it's got 100. You know, the Millie Maker this week, guys, with its 1.2 million entries, it's going to be a tough one to take down. You don't want to be too chalky in that. So, but I'm talking about in large tournaments. How are we starting off our lineups? Bob, Josiah, I'll start with you. Welcome back for another NFL season, by the way. My man.
It's good to be back, man. It's been too long. It's been too long since I've been on a show. But, you know, like you said, this week is a little weird because ownership isn't extremely high on one guy. And so I have guys that I like that takes getting a little bit weird, but I mean, I think everyone here is going to love Justin Herbert. I mean, Herbert's only 7% owned, and he's the best play on the slate. So it really shouldn't take having to get that different this week. So I'll take the cheat code and make you guys work a little bit harder. I'll take Herbert, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Eckler, that trio. Love it. And then a little bit of Everett spread in there too.
No one wants to worry about if it's going to be Palmer or Quentin Johnson as that WR3. Let's just ignore that.
If the DS gives me them, it gives me them, but I'm not trying to force them in there.
I'm not sure. I think it's Palmer, to be quite honest. But yes, I of course on board. The chalk stack, but is not chalky. That's usually a good sign that, hey, let's just leverage the best play because no one else is playing it. BobbyWow, you're nodding your head.
Yeah, I'm with Joe. I'm with Bob 100%. And I think another way to go, somewhat similar in terms of ownership, is I kind of like going Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence with Christian Kirk, with Ingram. I think that's another interesting spot. The Colts they're going to struggle defensively this season, to say the least. So,
and
totally
offensively.
agree. And offensively, yes. So yeah, I like the Jags on all sides, but give me some Trevor Lawrence this week.
I want your low end stacks as well. But Burns, give me a high price QB that you're focusing on that we haven't talked about yet.
Oh, geez. Herbert is the man probably this week. It's such a great matchup for him. I'll go down the scale a little bit from Herbert. I won't be up in that high range, but if you wanted to stay in that high range, Justin Fields is always going to be a good play. Lamar could actually have a good game. Now he's got a new offensive scheme that's different from what he's had in the past. So him at an 8K, don't really love that. But, if you want to go that route with him and Andrews and potentially OBJ as a new shiny toy into the offense along with Zay Flowers. But, I'm going to go down a little bit, and I'm actually going to go into that Seattle game, and I'm going to go with Geno here. He did it in week 13 in the same matchup against the Los Angeles Rams. It was actually projected by Vegas betting lines of a 40.5 point total with a -6 spread, and they beat that spread by 9.5 points. He put up 28 points on DraftKings, and the winning Millie Maker lineup was actually him and paired with Lockett, and Lockett went off for 30.8 points, almost the same exact salary that he is this week in week 1. So I love that pairing, and to add a little cherry on top, if you wanted to double him up with DK Metcalf in the same spot last year in week 13 put up 29.7 DK points. So that is a nice little QB +2 right there if you want to go that route.
Love the QB +2. No one mentioned Jalen Hurts. I think Jalen Hurts is up there as probably like more almost cash chalk on a slate like this at New England. Not the greatest game total in the world. A little bit of Super Bowl fatigue potential there with that first game back, but Jalen Hurts is such a beast at the top. But I've got an interesting my Millie Maker twist, because you guys we're really focusing in here a little bit on Millie Makers, and of course Joe Burrow's live as well. So a lot of these QBs, again, it's really tough to know how to. It's narrowing down. It has been difficult this week, but I think one place where not a lot of people will go and has some potential might be dangerous. Russell Wilson, Denver. Right? They're up against a really bad defensive team, but that can score in the Raiders. And I like that scenario. I like teams that can score on offense, but can't play defense, because that's what leads to shootouts. Now, normally, Russell Wilson makes me a little nauseous. Last couple of years, we've all seen him. He's been eating well, got the belly going, looks like a dad bod out there, slow, weird on camera, interviews, whatever, bringing in weirdos into the locker room, doing all this weird shit that Russ did last year with that horrible head coach who is now my beloved Jets offensive coordinator. Does not inspire confidence. But and Nathaniel Hackett, right? But Sean Payton goes in there, says, lose the weight. All right, you're fat. Russell Wilson comes in, drops the weight, right? Now we're looking at Sean Payton, and I'm thinking, wait a minute. Who's the king of getting like a short quarterback to play well? It's Sean Payton. He knows how to set up an offense, right? So he didn't put up with any of that bullshit. Russell Wilson, taking well to it, knows how to get the most out of an undersized QB. So, the negative, Jerry Jeudy out, but the positive with no Jeudy is that now if I'm stacking him, I already loved the rookie Mims, right, for 3K this week. I already like him. He's already one of my favorite pay down options. Now I drop Cortland Sutton in the mix, and we've got the cheapest tri-stack that you're going to find all week. You get underpriced Russ, you get 5K WR1 Cortland Sutton, and Denzel Mims, Marvin Mims, whatever Mims brother is over there on the Broncos at this point, for very, very cheap. So a really dirty Millie Maker stack right there at the high end for me.
Yeah, like that's a huge question. Is like, does Russell Wilson suck? Like, is he actually any good? And Russell Wilson, as of right now, he's gonna be my player pool too. But it does make me nervous. It does make me get.
Yeah, I don't know, and I don't have that answer, Josiah. I don't know. I think he might suck, but maybe not. Like, it is.
Well, we
week
know
one.
he sucked last year. But
Yeah.
is this new, thinner, smaller Wilson who now has a coach that's willing to put him in check? Does that change things?
I do appreciate the thinner. I really think he was like out there looking slow last year. Like, I don't know if it fixes it, but I think he needed a kick in the ass. And I do think it's better I think he started ignoring Pete Carroll and Nathaniel Hackett. I watched Hard Knocks. That guy ain't it. That guy ain't it. I'm sorry. Like, he's a fraud. He's not it. He's not it. He ain't that guy. All right, let's go to the bottom end now. So we talked about some high end stacks on that the higher price QBs, but does anybody like do we have a dirty, filthy, cheap Millie Maker potential stack? No one's going to be on it. I don't. Is Sam? Oh, first, let me go around the room here. Sam Howell chalk. That cannot be real.
People are excited, and I don't know that it'll be 10% Sam Howell, but people are excited about it. There's some buzz, and I think he'll be one of maybe the top 5 or 6 owned QBs. I would not be surprised.
He did run a little bit in his debut, and he did run a little bit in college. This is a running QB. He had it in his repertoire, but I don't know, Josiah. You're making a face. Like, you think?
Yeah, like both Anthony Richardson and Sam Howell will be in my player pool, but as of right now, they're not making it into my lineups, which I am very grateful for. I don't feel like I need to go there this week, and I don't want to. I just feel like it's going to be a gross game. I don't really see there being much production at all. There are some interesting pivots, and it makes for some really cheap stacks, so you can force in all the studs you want. I just don't think we're going to have to go there. So that's my ideal situation. And of course, Dotson to Howell, I can see it happening already, and I'm already upset about it, but ideally, no.
It just feels like one of those games where they might have 3 or 4 opportunities near the goal line. They'll score twice, and Brian Robinson will run both those in. So the game just feels too gross for me.
I like that a lot more.
I thought I was cute like about a month and a half ago when I started doing NFL Week 1 content, where I talked a little bit about Sam Howell and how he was an interesting play. And it was like, it was July, you know what I'm saying? But it was week 1. And I thought, I'm being cute. No one will even dream of such a crazy thing. And now that he's becoming like this play, no, that ruins it for me. This was a good play when it was 0.5% owned Sam Howell in week 1. I think the Cardinals defense does the damage. The problem is some of these games are not looking competitive. I don't see Arizona being competitive, period. I don't really see that. We have a couple of other injuries and other weird situations where we have to deal with. I want to talk about a couple spots as well. But
can I give you one, Geek? The same price as Howell? I'm getting some Baker Mayfield this week. I think it's gross. It's gross. It's dirty. But look, insanely cheap. And come on, you cover Baker's face, and then you got a guy like Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. Okay. Those are some legitimate weapons. Add on Rachaad White, who I think is going to have a great season. And you've got a legitimate offense around Baker. Baker's not afraid to sling it. He's under 5K on DraftKings. So GPP, That's my dirty stack is Baker with either Godwin or Evans, and don't be afraid to run it back with Cade Otton as well.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it last year where Baker had one really great game with the Rams. All the other ones were hot garbage, but that one game he went off. And so anything's possible with good talent. I unchecked him, so I'm not playing Baker Mayfield, but I do think it can be a smart play, and the DS did like him a lot earlier when I was running lines. So,
you know where I stand. So
he's an underdog. Burns is not going to play him. That is against the Millie Maker manifesto. But I'm going to tell you one thing that I will add to this, and to your point, BobbyWow, is the Vikings were the defense you went last year to attack with your opposing offense. No matter who they were playing, it was generally a good spot. We just back tested the entire 2022 season. Burns maybe spent 12 hours of live streams with me going through, and I did another 12 without Burns. If you can imagine how much streaming we did to look back at what happened last year. And one thing that kept coming up was the quarterback that was opposing the Vikings was frequently in the Millie Maker, or their players, a player that was going up against the Vikings and a player from the Vikings was also quite frequently a guest in the Millie Maker, or had a potential. So it's just those games go well. I hate Baker. I get it. But I really love Chris Godwin in this game for some reason.
Yeah,
and,
I like Chris Godwin too.
Yeah.
If Wentz can win week 1, then anyone can. I did have 2 more QBs I would like to add that are underdogs. I know Burns won't like. I like Watson this week, and I like Tua this week. And so that's kind of why I had to go a little bit lower on guys like Lawrence and the Bakers and the Sam Howells. As you all know, Burns talks about it a lot. The vast majority of the time, favorite QBs win. 40% of the time, unfavored quarterbacks win. When that happens, 80% of the time, there's a bring back with that. So one way for me to get different a little bit is to play guys who are in games that I see being high scoring, like Watson, like Tua, and then making sure there's a bring back alongside with that. And there's some fantastic bring back options in that game, in those game environments. So that's the way I'm going with them.
Tua with Tua. You gotta pair them up with 2. Yeah, the best part about Tua is just Waddle and Hill. Double it up.
No, to be honest with you, Josiah, I'm with you on the Watson call. I'm not with you on the Tua call. It's the highest game total on the entire slate. For me, it's Herbert in this game. But with Watson, I'm actually with you on this. And I actually like this game to go to the over. So I like Watson with a couple of his pieces there. So
Deshaun could, yeah, it's.
And I don't mind the Chase bring back either.
Yeah, it's an interesting spot.
That's what makes it really good.
You'd want some of these are game stacks, like the Geno. You mentioned Geno before, and I want to come back around because a lot of people get confused. Game stacks, team stacks. Am I stacking the QB with how much correlation do we need, right? And certain coaches have a tendency to coach a certain way. And I think that's an important component of this. So we haven't needed, for example, bring backs when Justin Fields goes off, or when Jalen Hurts goes off, or when some of these teams that just will pour it on you and it doesn't matter go off, right? But other teams have a tradition. And I'll mention Seattle as one of those teams where they just will not press the issue when they're up. They don't do it. So I don't ever recall a game, for example, where Russell Wilson back in the Seattle days went tournament winning level nuts, and it wasn't a scenario where a bring back was necessary in that game. It does not happen on that team because they just play a certain way and they're conservative. They want to run the football. So Seattle, I'm looking to bring it back. With Herbert, I think it's expensive to have a bring back on Miami. Therefore, it's maybe not something I want to force, but I don't mind it. I'd like to get Mostert in there maybe, but you won't get Hill or Waddle because it's just, you have to force that very manually. It's expensive, too expensive of a stack.
With those favorite QBs, if it happens naturally, I'm fine with it. I just don't force it. But when it's unfavored, that's when it's like, okay, I'm going to force it just because there seems to be a trend there. So,
Mike Watson makes a good point, and I'll mention another interesting statistic that we learned in back testing, and also just we've known for many years, which is correlation is much greater with the WR2, WR3 and tight end and the QB than it is WR1 and the QB. So the WR1 usually has a pretty good game anyway. And when the QB is going bonkers and winning you a tournament, it's usually because it's that second person that's going off. So when you focus on, when you're building your stacks, Mike here mentioned, Watson, and it's like, oh, wait, what are you, crazy? What about Amari Cooper? And I do want Amari Cooper in there, but Njoku and or DPJ are probably the ones that are going bonkers alongside an Amari Cooper in that scenario.
Don't forget Elijah Moore in that one.
Moore and you're right. And I did forget Elijah Moore. That's right. That's going to make that one a little trickier to figure out. Any other cheap QBs, guys, that interest you at all? I'll mention some favorites here. I'm not on probably any of these, but Brock Purdy and Derek Carr. Derek Carr could be interesting, I guess, with the Saints. Everybody likes Olave. No one likes Carr. I mean, he's never been my guy. You guys know I've never played him in a DFS lineup, but it's a new team. Should I change my thing?
I like Derek Carr. I like Derek Carr, and look, he's got some weapons around him. And I think, unlike the Seahawks, the Saints won't be afraid to put the pedal down and run away with this thing if the Titans can't keep up. So I think Derek Carr is going to want to show out. I think he's talented. I really do, Geek. And he'll be in my pool this week.
I always think if he's in my article, I get fired. So
yeah, no, you're not allowed to put Derek Carr in the Millie Maker article when he has never, and this guy has been in the league for 10 years. He's just never appeared in that. Like, what are we, 1%? That's a no. All right. Now, a couple situations have popped up this week, and we're going to have to try to figure out how to deal with them. So I want to go over some of those with you guys and see, like, what is the alternative? So I'm going to just go through some injuries here. The first one is we just found out that Christian Watson is out for the Packers, not playing. So BobbyWow helps your Bears. Put the bet in now, -1. Just take the line. Just put your bet in now, right? What is the effect of this? Are we now loading up on Dubs here as the backup? Is it, oh no, Aaron Jones benefits because now they're just going to be forced to run the football relentlessly? And does this help or hurt our potential Fields? Taco, or is it Luke Musgrave season? Maybe that's the answer. I don't know. What do we do here with this situation? BobbyWow.
Yeah, I'm probably the wrong guy to ask. I'm a little too biased in this case, but I don't hate the Luke Musgrave call. I think that's really interesting. And the one guy you didn't mention is Jaden Reed. I think he's somebody that's flying under the radar this season. And if you're looking for a cheap piece from this game, which there are several, I think he's another interesting player on the Packers. But look, any of those guys, I think Dobbs is pretty cheap too, but I am not a Jordan Love believer, and not all that's bias either. So I'm not going out of my way to grab a piece of the Packers here.
That's fair. I know you hate the Packers, so that's always a concern from this standpoint. Josiah, Cooper Kupp is out for the Rams, which means that they're going to throw to someone that's not Cooper Kupp, and that is 10 or 12 targets that become available. It is Stafford at the helm still. Van Jefferson, nice player. But then you have Pakua. I can never say this guy's name. The rookie Pakua. I can't even.
Yeah, just like with the Packers, the guy you mentioned, Puka Nakua. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Him and Jaden Reed for the Packers are both starting to show up in my lineups a bit more and starting to pop for me. Of course, they're not going to be someone that I have like 20-30% of, but I have like 10 to 15% of those guys, and I'm not going to X them out because of those favorable spots that they're now in.
I'm trying to find out Nakua, Nakua, and Tutu Atwell. P Nakua. That's the one that messed me up. Puka Nakua. I won't have
like when it comes to receivers and when there's injuries, like my philosophy is usually like that doesn't mean I'm going to lock someone in now because usually there's one guy that's going to benefit a ton, but it does mean I have slightly more interest in them because they should see more targets. So it's not like hey, we need to lock this person now. They're a lock, but you do want a little bit of exposure to these kind of situations where we have cheap guys in beneficial situations.
I'm looking to raise my floor on an NFL week 1. I'm just looking for where can I get certain targets, because everything's mysterious. We don't know usage yet. I think Van Jefferson's a spectacular play this week. He will be a core play for me. Part of it is I like Van Jefferson. Part of it is I drafted him in Dynasty 2 years ago. I happen to know that he was a 2nd round pick, a highly touted prospect, got hurt, missed a year. But so I've just been following this kid's career, and I'm like, he's an actual good player. So I think that's a big difference for me. I just try to figure out, like, is this backup person an actual good player also? Because if we could check both of those boxes, then I'm like, all right, yeah, I'll load up on that. Whereas I don't know if Puka is any good. I just know that he's a body that they're throwing in. I do know, I do believe, I don't know, I believe that Van Jefferson's pretty good. So I like that situation. I'm trying to think of any other spots that just popped up. I guess Walker, Q-tag, something's going on with Walker and
Ken Walker.
Kenny Walker, and his groin. Nope, no injury designation. So I don't know. I heard there was some concern, but now I'm seeing no injury designation, so he's probably fine.
Yeah. One other thing I'll add here too is that Seattle was pretty solid against wideouts last year. Like, they're not a team that you want to pick on in general. So like that's also why I'm just being kind of careful here.
That's fair.
I'm in the same boat with you, Josiah. I think it's the run game with the Rams that actually will benefit from that point of view. So,
BobbyWow, you mentioned that Jerry Jeudy might actually play.
I believe he returned to practice yesterday, so I don't know if he's going to play or not, but that would make things a little bit more interesting on the Broncos side.
Yeah, I was looking forward to Cortland Sutton's season, or Marvin Mims or Denzel Mims or whichever Mims. I can't get it right. I'm not even doing it on purpose. But Mims season. But that goes away if Jeudy plays. None of it. I think it becomes Judy's actually the best of those wide receivers if he does play. So let's transition over, guys, to running back. And
wait, Geek, you missed like some of the biggest news.
Wait, what?
Everyone's like the Panthers have like half their wideouts like questionable.
I was waiting for this. Chark was just ruled out.
Yeah, Chark is like actually out, and then Adam Thielen's questionable. Like, who's even going to be out there? Like,
there are no relevant Panthers wide receivers.
Give me some Johnny Mingo. That's one guy that's gone up in my player pool.
Yeah.
What? We're playing Mingo. Wait.
It's a punt.
Mingo at 3.2K.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I knew Chark is out, but my boy Terrace Marshall hasn't just been unhealthy.
Mm-hmm. And Thielen was questionable too.
Thielen, I wasn't playing him no matter what. Like, Thielen has so lack of it. Even if they throw him 10 times, he's only going to get like 7 receptions for 40. Like, you just massive volume on Thielen isn't even going to get you there. I like this price point on Mingo if he's a prime guy. Listen, you know what? Bryce Young's going to throw the football. We're not talking about a team that will not throw it.
Yeah.
Bryce Young was the most NFL ready prospect. He traded up. I'm okay with Mingo if those other guys are out. So good call, Josiah. I did not. I ignored. I mea culpa. I ignored the Panthers. Any other injury situations here that we need to be focusing on, guys?
I think we're good.
All right, let's talk running back here. And again, a wide open position group for NFL week 2. I don't know if you can even see this, but McCaffrey at the top of the order, Austin Eckler up there, and Nick Chubb, all in decent spots, but very expensive. My boy Bijan Robinson, I'm not even going to leave that so tiny, but my boy Bijan Robinson, who I love this season. Can we play Bijan this week at 8K? Is it a little too expensive?
What, at 8K, he's got to get 40?
He needs to get you about 35. You don't need the full 5X from a stud. You need 4X, and then your cheapies to all get you 6. So
see, let's think how's he going to get there, right?
100 yards, and a
100
touchdown.
yards. So that's 10 plus the 3-point bonus on DraftKings. That's 13. Got to
The
get in the
touchdown
end
gets you
zone.
20. The touchdown gets you 20. The second
Yeah.
touchdown gets you to 27, and then
40
3 receptions,
40
30
yards.
yards. That's 33.
That team, guys, I'm telling you right now, that team is full of vultures. It is full of vultures. Tyler Algier is going to vulture. Cordero Patterson, the Joker, is going to vulture. Desmond Ridder is a vulture. I'm nervous. I'm nervous about Bijan. Okay, this week especially, it's week 1, but just across the board, it feels like there's a lot of vultures on that team. So
I would like
I'm
to
a
let
little nervous.
Bijan's price adjust before I start loading up on him, because we don't know if he's it's funny when a new player comes in, DraftKings prices these players in a very specific way. Like Eckler is so at the stud level, but across the board, Eckler is priced in such a way that if you looked at his salary and you went back to last year, there were 4 or 5 occasions, 25% of the time, he's making tournament winning value. Probably another 30% of the time, he's making cash value, and then other times he's disappointing. So they're priced in a certain way. Those guys are already known. Same thing with McCaffrey. If you go back, he's going to hit, he's at 9K, almost 92 and 36. He's going to hit 36 probably 1 out of every 4 games or 5. Now you need to guess right is all it is. Now, I don't love McCaffrey. If I had to choose between the stud group here, as a matter of fact, let's start there. We'll go in the round table, guys. So I don't know if you can see the screen. I'm going to try to show it. But if you had to choose here between the top group, I'll go everybody from Jacobs up to McCaffrey. One stud that is your favorite. Go around the room. I'll start with you, Josiah. Which of this group is the one that you would most likely use? And salary can be part of this.
I'll let someone else go first this time.
All right. BobbyWow, you got to choose one stud. You've got anywhere up to 8,700 left to spend, but you don't have to spend it all. Jacobs, Henry, Bijan, Chubb, Eckler, or McCaffrey, who would be your top choice with the salary being a consideration?
It's Eckler for me all day. I think the dual threat, he is the guy in that backfield. And you can't say that for Christian McCaffrey. Again, same deal as what I was mentioning with the Falcons. There's a lot of people on the 49ers that will take usage away from McCaffrey. We saw it last year with Ayuk, with Deebo Samuel. And so to me, Eckler stands out as this is the guy that's going to see the volume. He's going to see targets. He's going to get carries. And so it's an easy decision with Eckler for me.
I don't know why Josh Jacobs would be cheaper in the Superflex format unless all the running backs are cheaper. I haven't looked at it. But Taco mentioned Josh Jacobs. I like him a lot in this group. I love Eckler as well, BobbyWow. Burns, anyone else? Because I think those two are the two that are my personal favorites.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go. I was going to go with Josh Jacobs and then Eckler. Josh Jacobs because he's slightly cheaper than Eckler, and he's we've seen it last year where he can actually get there multiple times. Eckler, being 700 more, he's got to get a little bit more points than Jacobs to pay it off. But those two, I would call them 1A, 1B. They're really good, both in really good situations this week too.
Yeah. The one thing that I'll add is that with Robinson, one thing that makes him a little bit more interesting is Cordell Patterson being questionable. If he's out, that does slightly lower the vulture chance, but because of the vulture situation that Bobby mentioned, does make him a little bit less interesting. With Nick Chubb, I am so interested in seeing how they use him week 1. Will they start giving him some receptions? With Hunt now being gone, I do have a little bit of interest. I'll have some exposure, but I think the main guys here are the ones you mentioned, like Eckler, Jacobs are really interesting. And then Chubb and Derrick Henry, I have a little bit of interest in, but I doubt I'll be much higher above the field than those guys. And then for me, CMC, solid play, but he's a little bit too chalky for me this week. So I like the other options who I think are in better spots.
I'll just give my tournament take on all of this is I think you're better off not spending up for running backs this week. So, my whole take on this is this whole group. I don't love Derrick Henry. I don't love the matchup at all. Brand new offensive line. His team's an underdog. There are multiple reasons. I want Henry as a favorite, and I'm concerned about a brand new offensive line in Tennessee. So I'm out there. And I just think you're probably going to be able to find a 20+ point scorer for cheaper. And if I can do that, then that's how I want to construct my lineups, unless they're the Herbert lineups where you kind of want Eckler as a potential pairing. If I'm not building around that game, I'm probably avoiding this zone for the most part. So I'm going to go to the mid zone here at the running back position and go through, like, I've already talked a little bit about this zone here, but there's a lot of good spots, and I want to get your guys' takes on this. Starting with ETN, team is a heavy favorite, should lean on the run, right? Joe Mixon going up against a Cleveland defense that was ranked very, very poorly. I'll do this on the Dom Station screen. Let me see if I can get that a little bit larger, because I can't really see the DraftKings screen when I open it there. How's this look? So, no, I don't like that. Hang on. See, you're seeing some live stuff happening that normally happens behind the scenes. But what I was saying is I like this zone here when we get to like the 6K and the 7K and under zone. Ramondre Stevenson, maybe not, but Travis Etienne in a good spot. Joe Mixon's one of my favorites, though. Joe Mixon, for me, has absolutely smashed in games when Samaje Perine wasn't with the Bengals, right? You know who's not with the Bengals? Samaje Perine. If he can get 70-75% of the touches, Cleveland was terrible against the run last year. That doesn't mean that will continue this season. New defensive coordinator. Have no idea. But if we go by last year, he gets the elusive, one of the higher ratings on this slate. So I'm going to go around the room again, and I want to talk about this middling zone between 7K and 5K. Give me a couple guys you like in this zone, one at the higher end and one at the lower end. And let's go through the room with the Sharks and give me some reasonings and basis for these plays. So this time I'll start with you, BobbyWow. Give me two running backs in this, because I think this is the sweet spot. This is where we're going to be hanging out. 5K to 7K. You got a lot of starters in here, a lot of interesting spots.
Yeah, I think on the higher side of that range, I'm liking Travis Etienne a lot, and that guy does it all for the Jaguars. He'll catch passes. They're not afraid to feed him, and to me, he stands out as the best play. I think the Colts. I mean, like we talked about earlier, the Colts, they're going to have a rough year, and so I think Travis Etienne can exploit that. So he's my go-to guy up near that 7K mark, and then toward the bottom of that list, toward the 5K mark, I really like Rachaad White and Raheem Mostert. I think Raheem is. I think he's in a really intriguing spot in tournaments, especially. He's amped up to be the guy in Miami, and the matchup is juicy for him. So Raheem is really intriguing to me. I find myself being well over the field on him.
The Rocket Raheem, I love that. It's hard not to envision Raheem having a good day for 5,200 or whatever his salary is. Super cheap. Burns, how about you? BobbyWow likes ETN at the top level. Looking at Raheem Mostert at the cheaper. There are so many great RB options. Honestly, it's hard to narrow it down. I love this zone, and there's tons and tons. I don't think I'm going super heavy on any individual one except for one core play. But Burns, how are you seeing the RB position right now?
I think there's a lot of greatness in the 6K range. I can name off a few that are really good. Mixon, like you said, is in a great spot. ETN is in a great spot. I also like J.K. Dobbins this week in a good spot against a really putrid Houston run defense. He really doesn't have to get much to get there in terms of like yardage, where he can get a couple of touchdowns at the goal line. So he's in my pool as well. I also like Aaron Jones this week. But down at the 5K range, I'm in 100% agreement with Bobby in that Rachaad White's a really great play this week, going up against Minnesota's really porous defense against the run. And they're also really porous against pass catching backs. But if I had to add a different one in regards to Mostert's call, which I really agree with Bobby, is I'm going to look at that Washington Redskins game. I'm going to go with Brian Robinson. I think he has a good run this year. I think this is going to be a game where he actually separates himself from Antonio Gibson. And Arizona Cardinals aren't that great of a defense. So I could see Brian Robinson actually having some pretty good run at 5.1K this week.
So many good spots. Brian Robinson's a ballsy call, Burns, because all the hype in the preseason is Antonio Gibson, just like every preseason, though. It's the same damn thing. Mm-hmm. And then the season hits and it's different. But, new coordinator over there, so we'll see. Now, Bob, I already know who your cheapie is, but I don't want to spoiler it.
I think you'll be surprised. Right. I think for me, this is I think we talked about a lot of the guys. I really like Aaron Jones. I really like Cam Akers. I really like Kenneth Walker. Those are kind of like my main three that I'm using this week. And then
none of these are who I was thinking of.
Oh, okay. So I guess you do know me. I think my cheapie is pretty chalky, so I'll just wait for that. But I do have some exposure to Brian Robinson. I like him a good bit. I really want to get on the Raheem Mostert train like you all are, but I am really struggling to find it. Like for me, it's just they almost always have some sort of committee system there, and there's never just one guy that really explodes. I'm just what am I missing there, guys?
They just don't really have a whole lot else. They don't really have a whole lot else going on. And Salvin Ahmed is the only backup running back on that roster. Like Devon Achane did not show well. So it's just about who else is there. But Salvin Ahmed actually got run with his. They'll play him. He's been with the team for 5 years.
Scares me.
Multiple years. So that's what it's all right. I'm surprised at a couple of non-mentions. So I do have to mention these guys. And one of them, BobbyWow, you mentioned in the private chat, is Jamal Williams. Jamal Williams getting all the run for New Orleans. There's so many spots like this. And these are great on FanDuel. Probably even better on FanDuel than DraftKings because these are touchdown scores. You want 3 running backs this week on FanDuel because there are so many starters for cheap there. But Jamal Williams, touchdown guy, can catch a pass. No competition for touches with the Saints. Right? Then I don't understand how you didn't mention this guy, Josiah, but Miles Sanders on the Panthers, finally unleashed from the whole RBBC Eagles system that he's been in. Let's see what he can do on a team that wants to run the football and ran the football fairly well, I would say, last year without the greatest crew of running backs. So we'll see how Miles Sanders does in that spot. So those
wideouts out, like Miles Sanders is really the only guy who's played a decent amount of football who's able to catch the ball. So I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Right now, I'm just around field weight on Sanders, but we'll see.
Yeah, and then my favorite play on the entire slate at running back is Rachaad White. We all mentioned him. I don't want to usurp that mention, but like, what's not to like about Rachaad White? The fact that he's really good at catching passes, or that he's up against like one of the worst defenses of the past couple of years in the NFL, or that he has no real serious competition. Although there is a kid there that's a rookie that's making some noise, Sean Tucker. But yeah, BobbyWow, you said it right. Don't worry about that. There's nobody under 5K that I'm interested in this week. I like these all. So now that we've kind of established that the running back position is super wide open and there's so many of it, now I'm curious a little strategically from you guys, like how do you handle that as you're making your lineups? You're running your 150, you're running your 300, you're handcrafting 20 lineup, whatever it is that you do, right? How are you handling this? Are you just going to spread it out? Are you going to take a stand? BobbyWow, are you taking a stand?
I don't think running backs where I'm going to take a stand this weekend. I think I'm going to have a nice little spread, especially between 5 and 7K, like you mentioned. There's just so many value options that are in great spots that I'm totally comfortable, not committing to 3 or 4 specific guys. So I'll definitely have a spread in my 150.
That's fair. Josiah, you taking a stand this week or you spread them out?
I mean, it just depends on what you mean by stand. But yeah, I mean, I have a pretty decent spread, but then I have like my top 4 or 5 guys that I'm well over the field on.
And who are those guys?
Jamal Williams, Josh Jacobs, Kenneth Walker, Aaron Jones as of right now.
Yeah, Aaron. I like it. Yeah, it's been hard for me. I'll be higher on like a couple of my guys, but like Jamal's in that list, Rashad White. Burns, what about you?
I'll just have a global max, and however the optimizer places every one of these amazing plays in, I'm just going to go for it. I don't really have any particular guy that's going to be, way over the field or not. It's just set my global max. They make it to that global max amount. Great. Awesome.
I do tend to like to allow my running backs in particular to go very high exposure when appropriate.
Yeah. When there's one or two clear plays, I'm with you. But right now, there's quite a few.
Yeah. They're all too similar in salary.
Yeah, a guy that I could see where I would be over, my global max could potentially be Akers this week. It's just such a good matchup for him.
I'm worried about him too. There's a backup there that's not bad. It's supposed to get Kyron Williams supposed to get the passing game more. I don't know. By the way, guys, 141 people watching live, or at least if that little number is correct. So shout out to all you guys who are watching this live. We appreciate you. Hit that like button, subscribe, notify, whatever it is that YouTube wants you to do to let us know that you're out there. We appreciate you guys being with us, and we appreciate the chat in the chatter box over there. So give us your takes as well. We are reading them, checking them out. I love that stuff. So let's move on a little bit and talk wide receivers this week, and we'll kind of keep the format the same. As far as just like, is there a stud, a mid, and a dud? Right? Let's kind of we already mentioned a few super cheapies that will pop or have the potential to pop this week, and I think there's 5 or 6 that exist. There's probably a lot more that I haven't thought of. So I want to get your under the radar plays, but let's start with the top zone, the obvious plays, the stud zone, and now take us out of stack mode, and we're in standalone play. You got to click the button. You got some salary left over. So we're in the top of the range here. You've got all the studs to pick from. Where are you going? Do you have a preference? And if you don't, that's okay too. I think I have a preference here in the sort of elite zone. So I want to hear if anybody has a preference at the highest level. Josiah?
Hey, Geek, one quick thing before that. We didn't talk about Deion Jackson in that situation with the Colts running backs.
Yeah, I have to say, obviously he is starting, and somebody mentioned him, Mr. 5 Cent. Dude, I don't have high hopes for Deion Jackson.
Yeah.
I don't
There's
have
that rookie behind him that worries me a little bit too. Evan Hull, right?
Yeah. They said, I've heard split with Evan Hull, but more so, that team is not going to be in position to score. And if they are, it's going to be Anthony Richardson. Like, the one thing he could do is run there's too much vulture potential, and there's too little throw. He had captain check down last year, which is why he had this great game. He caught a bunch of passes with Matt freaking whatever the hell, Kelly. I can't even remember. I erased him from my memory. Once you're out of the NFL, the Falcons quarterback, Matt.
Mariota.
No,
he's thinking Matt Ryan.
Matt Ryan.
Oh,
yeah. Matt Ryan. Captain check down. How do I not what? He's out of the NFL for like a day. I'm like, I erased him. Captain check down was thrown to Deion. I don't see it. I wanted to. Josiah, I love a cheap running back. That's literally my brand. Like, I've been looking for cheap running backs since 2011. I cannot get on board with this.
If I'm playing anyone from that team, cheap running back, I'm going Zach Moss, for the record.
It's not this week. He's not even healthy yet. But Zach Moss will be
back. He will be back
this week.
I think so. Yeah.
No, I think he's out for a couple of weeks. But when he does come back, pick him up in your fantasy league, because he will probably be the better turd.
Yeah. But to answer your question, the original question about the wideouts. So we talked about a lot of these guys. Love Chris Godwin, Keenan Allen, love Drake London. I didn't really foresee being a top guy for me, but he is as of right now. Marvin Mims is one of those cheapy guys for me this week, alongside John Domingo. And then really like DK Metcalf this week. And then probably the guy that I really like is Tyreek Hill in this spot. And then I know who you all are probably going to mention. I like
Tyreek is spectacular. I love Tyreek. So I think he is the best of the pay ups personally. When you're talking, if I have to compare him to I mean, Chase is so good too. But if I had to compare these guys, I'm probably going to favor Tyreek Hill over Jefferson and Chase just a smidge. But like, we're choosing between,
Yeah, for me, it's like
10.
a 2% difference between the two.
Yeah,
Like,
they're all 10s.
yeah.
They're all. It's like if you're at the club and you see a bunch of 10s, and you're like, oh, I like that one better, but I'm really, really happy with it. They're all awesome, but we can have a little preference. BobbyWow made you uncomfortable with the club reference. Apologies.
Jeez. I want to ask, let's change subjects here real quick. What are your thoughts on Michael Thomas? What do we do with Michael Thomas? Because that is a really interesting situation to me. He's really, really cheap. Looks to be somewhat healthy, at least relative to the last couple of years. And Derek Carr's going to sling the football. So what do we do with him?
I think Michael Thomas is going to deliver value at 5K if he's healthy at all. But Olave is the man on that team, right? So there's this interesting thing where I'm not sure he has enough ceiling to where he's going to 5X it for us. Remember, at 5K, we need a 25 fantasy point production for Michael Thomas, which he could totally get. I kind of see him as kind of like a DeAndre Hopkins type, where it's going to be primarily possession, could get 7 or 8 targets in a game like this, and, is probably a lock button for 12 to 14 floor fantasy points. I'm not sure. He's in my mix, but I'm not core playing it. That's how I'm treating it, because I think Olave is the alpha dog there and will get the alpha treatment.
Yeah, it's a weird situation. We talked about it earlier, where the Vikings were a team that we picked on when it came to attacking with the pass attack. The Titans were right there too. We made a decent amount of money last year picking on them. But the Michael Thomas situation and all the question marks, I want a little bit of exposure, but Chris Olave is really my guy that I trust a bit more. But I think that's a great call out, Bobby. I think he's interesting.
Yeah, and by the way, and Olave is not that much more expensive than Michael Thomas. Like 6K, 5K. It's not like Olave. I think Olave will eventually. Let's put it this way. I think Olave will make his way into the low 7s this season, and I think Michael Thomas might be a little underpriced too, but probably will make his way to like the mid 5s or maybe even the high 5K zone. So in looking for value, I think there's value in both of those guys.
Yeah, I was curious how you were going to treat that situation. The other one I wanted to ask about too, or get us talking about, was Christian Kirk and Calvin Ridley. That'll be a unique duo there.
Yeah.
Like, wondering where you guys are going, because Calvin Ridley is under 5% ownership at this point. That feels too low.
I don't understand it. I don't understand the love for Christian Kirk here. It's bananas. Kirk is hang on, let me see if I can put this up on screen. Kirk,
I think it's a salary thing.
I mean,
Ridley's higher in price. He hasn't played in over a year. There's a lot of uncertainty with Ridley because of that, and I think a lot of people are just like Kirk. He had a great week 2 last year. He blew up last year at week 2, so that's kind of where I'm thinking. But actually, to be more honest with you, I think the better tournament play is Ridley.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go to ownerships that we're showing on screen right now. Again, with the admittance that this is not what we're probably going to see as final ownerships. But we have been on the show in weeks where I was like, oh my God, Carr is going to be the highest owned. Bullshit. And then it turns out he was. So if you remember from last year, there was a few situations like this. If you look at the ownerships, Christian Kirk being the 3rd highest projected owned player on this entire slate, I will have 0 if that's the case, because you have to leverage that. I don't care. Is Christian Kirk going to beat us to the point where we can't win a tournament because we didn't roster Christian Kirk? I don't think so. Right?
If I'm playing Lawrence, I'm fine with it. But
Lawrence, fine. But do you want to play this? I'm not playing this as a standalone piece on a non-Lawrence lineup. Yeah. With Lawrence, agreed. I'm not going to shut down any. I never shut down any stack mates in the stack. But hell no. This is hell no. There's some weird things. T. Higgins at 12%. That's a little high for T. Higgins too, in my opinion. But Christian Kirk here, no. You play Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley is the alpha on that team. He is the best. He is an elite wide. I don't care that he hasn't played in a while. He gambled. What are you going to do? You know what? all 4 of us wouldn't be allowed to play in the NFL.
Also true.
Fucking degenerate gamblers are not allowed to play. All right. So don't, I'm not holding my nose up against Calvin Ridley like I'm better than you.
Yeah.
I know exactly where he's coming from.
I'm really hoping for like a good spot to attack with these Jaguars. Like the matchup against the Colts isn't my favorite. I do agree though. Like Ridley, I think will be totally fine. I just think this isn't the best spot for them.
And understand, this is a ownership leverage. We are talking tournament tactics here. If you want to play Christian Kirk, I don't agree with playing him in your cash lineup. But if that's what you want to do because he's high projected or whatever, that's fine. I don't agree with it. Zay Jones, Evan, there are too many guys that I am not playing him in my cash lineup. I'm for Van Jefferson, right? Give me a guy who's going to get a lot of targets for sure. Christian Kirk is great. I don't need fantasy receipts, playing this video of me ripping Christian Kirk when he goes off for 36. I'm not saying it can't happen. I'm just saying at high ownership, I'm not doing that. I'm just not. I'm going to give you another name. I'm going to give you some fades here, guys. Some ownership fades. I like fading more than I like playing people. I don't know why. I enjoy fading more than I enjoy playing them. Devontae Adams, you're going to pay $8K. And I love Devontae Adams. He's my guy. You're going to pay $8K for Devontae Adams going up against Pat Surtain in coverage with a new QB that doesn't really know him well. 10% owned. One of the highest owned players on the entire slate. That's not for me. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but he's going up against one of the best corners in the league as chalk with a new QB and needs like a 36 to make value.
I mean, I don't have a lot of Devontae this week, but just to play like devil's advocate a little bit here, they faced off twice last year. One time Adams didn't have a great game. The second game, I don't know if he was in the nuts, but he did have a decent performance, right? Or am I wrong?
Let's pull it up here.
Can take a look.
They still have last year's game logs. So let's see, against the Denver 36. He did have a good game against Denver last year, and probably up against Surtain. Yes,
Surtain didn't get hurt or anything prior to that game, right?
No, not that I recall. So okay, yeah, he had a 36 pointer. But by the way, that is just exact 4x value. That's not a had to have it score. Josiah, 4x is just keeping me in line with like you didn't not win. As a matter of fact, I would guarantee you he was not in the GP. He was not in the nuts. He was probably not even in the nuts lineup or the tournament winning lineup last year, because I think Burns, when we went through it, we didn't really see many over 8K players at all showing up in Millie Maker winners.
That's right.
Yeah.
And his ownership being at 10%, as of right now, I don't have any exposure, but just thought that was interesting.
Let's also not forget that Jimmy G is the one that's throwing him the football.
Yeah, Van Jefferson is
going to be. Do we feel like that's different though between Carr and Jimmy G?
Yes, I do.
You do?
I do.
BobbyWow thinks Jimmy G is better than Carr.
Oh. Whoa! No.
You think he's worse?
I think Carr's way better.
You like Carr better than Jimmy G? All right, I think it was
way more upside.
I think it was Gargano or Stats. One of the other shows I was on where they were touting up. It was Jimmy G better than Carr, and I'm like, I think they're the same guy. I've said it.
Yeah, I feel like they're the
times.
Same guy.
I don't notice the difference. I don't know. I think they're the same. And yes, Van is, if he's not in my sheet marked as core already, I don't understand why not. He should be on there. Hit refresh because he is one of my Van will be one of my top plays. But let's move down the list and let's get into some other plays that I'm going to call it flag plant wide receivers. I want your flag plants. I want the guy that you're like, this is his week. I am planting my flag. I am playing this guy in most of my lineups.
For me,
shut up.
For me, it's Godwin. This guy will be in a lot of my lineups. He's probably got the best matchup on paper and per our rating. So he will be in a lot of my lineups. He's probably going to be the top owned from my perspective in my lineups. But at the high range, salary wise, I got to go Chase here. I just think he's in too good of a matchup. Tyreek as a one-off for me would be perfectly acceptable, especially in like a high dollar, low entry GPP contest. I could see that happening really well there. He's got one of the best matchups on paper right now of any other wide receiver in the slate. And if I have to go lower than that, I don't particularly like mind a couple of these guys in the 5K range. Coming in, I kind of like Jordan Addison this week as well at the 5K range. I think what we'll see is, Jefferson's going to beast. He's going to beast. It's just possible. But I do like Addison coming on the opposite side of him as well this week against they're okay. They're not that great of a defense from the secondary. So that's kind of how a couple of flag plants there.
I like a lot of those guys. I don't disagree with anything you just said. So, BobbyWow, how about you? Plant the flag for me.
I think
DJ
for me,
Moore.
it's Chris. No, not this week. It's Chris Godwin as well. I think he's going to be 20% owned across the board by the time this thing locks.
Well, if Evans is limited at all or out, Evans is basically saying Evans is kind of requesting a trade. He's making some hay over there.
It is what he's going to play. But even so, like 5,900, Chris Godwin, that's a slam dunk play. And I think this game goes over anyway. I really like the game environment for that. JJ, I'm paying up for JJ if I'm paying up. He's an absolute stud. And I don't think anyone's questioning whether or not he can go off. And again, I think the environment is right for that. I will have a lot of lineups with JJ and Godwin, both in them. And then Drake London is probably the other guy that I'm getting closer to the flag planting status on.
Really?
He's way, way, way too cheap. I love the matchup. And look, he's the guy. So he's the wide receiver. I understand the rushing attack. I get it. But at that price, Drake London is really, really, really intriguing for me.
100% with you on that, Bobby.
Man, I was not expecting to hear that. And I got to write this down and get some Drake London in my mix at this point, because that was not on. He is the, he's the 33%er, but is Des Ridder going to throw more than 20 times?
He might not have to, because even if he throws 20 times, 10 of those are going to Drake London.
Could be. Josiah, who are we planting a flag on?
Yeah, I mean, my top guys I mentioned early on, they're all at the max universal maxes I have, like Metcalf, Hill, Mims, Godwin, Allen, and London. Those are my guys this week.
Yeah. I'll pop the optimizer Dom station on here. I got the wide receiver position sorted. And as you could see, it's these cheap rookies that are always going to pop as the number one value on the slate. Marvin Mims. This will change if Jerry Jeudy does play, though. We're going to scratch him off that sort of expectations list. You've got Jaden Reed on the Packers, who now will be on the upswing with Christian Watson ruled out, and Chris Godwin already popping as one of the best values on the entire slate. Jonathan Mingo, you mentioned and Drake London. So I mean, the projections very much agree with a lot of the strong leans that you guys have. I've already told you. I think there's a couple spots. I like the high floor, target floor guys. I'm really interested in Romeo Doubs now with Christian Watson ruled out, because he kind of reminds me of the Jaden Reed play, but with a veteran who's actually shown some pretty decent chemistry with Love. And again, BobbyWow, I love you, but I do want to attack that Bears defense at times. I don't think they're that good. I don't think they're that great. I already mentioned Van Jefferson. I'm going to say it again, and hopefully I'm right, so you'll remember it. And hopefully if I'm wrong, you won't remember it. It's a really important part of DFS touting. If I'm wrong, never mentioned again. But if we're right, we want to bring it back up. So I do like Van Jefferson. And I love all your picks. I love Jonathan. Chris Godwin, I thought would be great. When I thought Evans was out, I was going to lock button him. Now that Evans looks like he's going to play, we'll see. But I did hear some rumors that Evans is a trade candidate to a team out in Kansas City that lacks wide receiver talent at the moment. I'm not going to name what team it is, but
yeah. And I saw someone mention this in the chat, but I think it's true too. Like, I do have a little bit of Mike Evans as well, just because if the ownership does shift to Godwin and Evans is going to play, I think he's interesting as well, especially if you're playing Baker. I'm not, but still.
Should be.
I know.
I want to play some Baker.
Know.
And again, the Burns rule is don't play heavy underdogs on the road. And I agree with it but I'm gonna always break it just a little bit to get a little crazy for the millie. I don't want to break it too hard.
You don't have to get crazy at the quarterback position to win the millie.
You just have to play Herbert this week, guys. It's easy. Or
one other guy I want to mention before we start getting toward the cheapy zone is DeAndre Hopkins. He is under 7K, which is crazy. And yes, I understand we're talking about Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry leading the charge on that offense, but it's easy to forget that Ryan Tannehill wasn't as bad when he had guys like AJ Brown. I think DeAndre Hopkins could be one of those cheap. Not cheap. He could be one of those guys that flies under the radar at 6,900 and puts up a ceiling game.
He should be super low owned at that price.
I just think, this game I think could turn into a higher scoring game. And so again, he's on my radar too. Not a smash play by any means, but someone I've got my eye on under 7K.
I'll give you one here under 6K, which is and right next to Godwin. We'll call it an alternate. I think this zone at wide receiver is very, very juicy, by the way. There's just tons of good plays here. So many things I could talk about each one of these guys for a while, but Amari Cooper is the WR1 for his team. He has looked great at times. He is an alpha. He's healthy week 1. I like Amari Cooper too. I'm not getting away. If he's going to be low owned, Amari Cooper is a great play in a competitive, high scoring, high total game with a competent quarterback. He's the WR1. I like Cooper. I like Njoku too in that game. So I got no problem with that. And then, all these guys, we talked about Calvin Ridley already. There's so much goodness here. DJ Moore, tougher matchup, but I love him this season. A tougher matchup week 1 against Jair Alexander. I think that it favors not DJ Moore, but DJ Moore could still go off in that matchup. Mike Williams, tougher matchup, probably going to see Burns mentioned he's going to see Xavier Howard coverage. Yeah. But you take that aside, 5,700 for Mike Williams is a really good price point. There's Drake London, 5,400. So a really exciting zone here between 5K really and down in the 3K level that keeps me off of I think as I'm watching the whole slate come together, and we've already talked about running back and where there's so many mid 5 to 6K values, and we talk about wide receiver and tons of cheaper values here. I think the approach this week is really going to be to keep it mid. We don't have to go studs and duds. I don't need to squeeze Justin Jefferson in there and have to have a 3K sort of punt in there. I think the approach might be to try to keep your lineup level with those 5 and 6K players and build a whole lineup like that and just pick the right ones.
Yeah, I agree with you on Cooper, but I'm already playing Watson, so it makes sense. You ready to move to tight end?
Yeah, let's talk tight ends. Burns, what is the Millie Maker mathematical formula for choosing tight ends, please?
I'll just keep it simple, guys. Look at the favored tight ends here. 24 or greater on the implied team total. That's just a couple of the adages that we look at. If you really want to get in depth on all the adages for the tight end positions and all the other positions that we have to roster, just buy my book, Winning the $1 Million Game, and you'll get it all from me.
There's the plug. Winning the $1 Million Game on Amazon. Link description below. There it is. All right, boys. Let's talk a little bit of tight end. At the high end, Andrews, Hawkinson, George Kittle, questionable, might not play. Going to wipe him out. Dallas Goedert, Tyler Higbee, high target share. We're already getting down in the salary zone. So there are really just 2 studs available this week. Mark Andrews, TJ Hawkinson. I don't know what bad you could say other than they're both good and they're both can go off. And if we're playing our mid-salary approach, I think this is where you get the luxury. Normally when you're playing studs and duds, the dud is always the tight end, right? 3K tight end, just plug them in. We can get a little studly with our tight end position, and they're weirdly not that expensive on DraftKings this week with Andrews and Hawkinson both sitting around 6K. Any preferences or thoughts on just the strategy of fuck it, pay up at tight end?
To be honest with you, I'm pretty intrigued that Mark Andrews is our number 4 valued tight end on the slate at 6.2K. I mean, he's the highest tight end on the slate, and he's our number 4 value on the slate. That's amazing. No, I'm in 100% agreement with you on this. I think, Andrews and Hawkinson could have really good games. If you keep it flat around that 5-6K with your running backs and your wide receivers, you can afford a guy like Hawkinson and a guy like Andrews in your tight end slot to be able to offset it. So I'm with you on that, Geek. I think it's a really good call. There's other guys in the range that could actually potentially have good games. Hayden Hurst at the really bottom barrel 3K range. He's not a favorite, but sometimes we have to go into the underdog situations to offset our lineups with some cheaper guys, and we usually look at the tight end as a cheaper option for us. So at 3K, Hayden Hurst, another underdog that is making more of my lineups when I look at Watson is Njoku here. So I could see him there. But I also like the other side of the table too with Irv Smith with Burrow as well.
Those Burrow stacks, Irv, get him in there.
Yeah. And then, a couple others in the article was, I'm kind of intrigued with that Jacksonville game. Evan Ingram could go off against Indianapolis this week. So those are a couple that I have interest in this week.
I'm trying to, there's a difference between like the tight ends that I would mix into my stacks versus standalone guys that I want to just like plant my flag on. You guys mentioned Njoku. I just feel good about Njoku too. I just feel like I like that price relative to his usual. He gets 6 targets. Like every game. Every once in a while, it'll spike to 8 or 9 or go down to 4, but it's almost always 6. And that's enough. At 4,200, 6 targets, 50 yards, 5 receptions. It's 10 points. Get me the touchdown. And we're at 4X. That's really, or have a crazy game, 2nd touchdown, 6X. That's what you're, 1 out of 5 times that'll happen. It's not gonna happen every week. Bobby, you got a plant flag? You got a flag plant at tight end?
No flag plants. I agree. Hawkinson and Andrews are the standouts for me. I also like going to the highest scoring game on the slate. I think Gerald Everett is a really good stacking option with Justin Herbert. And I swear, I don't understand it. Everyone is forgetting about Durham Smythe. Okay. I know. You're going to think I'm crazy.
Wait, Bobby, you said we're forgetting. When did we ever think about it?
It's the first I've heard of him. I didn't forget. Durham Smythe. Well, Gesicki's gone.
I'm just saying, if you're looking for a basement tight end to play in a high scoring game, talking about a double stack, you got Tyreek Hill, who's top of the price range for wide receivers. Throw Durham Smythe in there if you're getting silly for the millie. That's all I'm saying. You
play the cheapest tight end on the board. You don't need a monster score. A 12 will get you there with Durham. Listen, I'm never going to shit on a BobbyWow crazy take because they always come true. They always come true.
Not always.
Not always, but all I know is I'm on the Showdown Breakdown last night. My man is screaming about Josh Reynolds. Next thing I know, $100,000 bills being printed with Josh Reynolds in the lineup, and you don't do that for every player. It's uncanny. I'm very impressed. So yeah, I think tight end guys. There's a lot of I hate to say it because it's week 1 and we're not able to narrow things down as much as you'd like. I think there are some flaws with some of these players. Like I think you have to be aware, for example, like Evan Ingram smashed last year, but there are just more options in that offense this year. Tyler Higbee, probably good for lots of targets, but maybe not doing much with those targets. Juwan Johnson is a young player or an on the up player on the upswing. I like in that Saints offense.
Luke Musgrave,
rookie. What's that?
The problem is they signed Jimmy Graham. All that dude does is catch touchdowns.
Yeah, he's going to so vulture it. Did he actually make the team? I know it was the preseason they signed him.
I honestly don't know.
I'm not even sure if he made the team. But yeah, like you're right. That's concerning. I don't know about Patty Freiermuth. Let's take a look at ownership and just, if you sort by ownership, it looks like Evan Ingram's going to be the 2nd highest owned, for example. Jeez. And I would just caution on that. Like, I'm just going to call, again, I live in the negative. That's how we do it in the VIP. And I would just caution on that. It's not to say Evan Ingram can't have this great game, but like there's 5 weapons there now.
Yeah, I agree. I like the people you are talking about. I think Higbee is a little interesting to me just because Kupp is out. He should see targets facing a team that's historically been bad against tight ends for a long time in the Seahawks. So I do think Higbee is a little interesting. Another guy we're not talking a lot about is Dallas Goedert. I think Dallas, I like Hurts this weekend in general, and so I like having a little bit of him too.
Move on to defense, the position that wins you the tournament more often than not. You put a great lineup together, but your defense is shit. And that's the difference between 150th place in the flea or first place. It was just like, man, if I just got the defense right, I just need to get the defense right. So I'm going to start with Burns and give me the Millie Maker. You had some, Burns, you always have some crazy defense takes too that I'm just not on. So I don't know the math. Break it down for me, the defense position, and tell me why I shouldn't go 100% Washington Commanders this week.
Because they're going to be the chalk this week. And how many times have we seen a defense that is chalk explode? And it's like everybody that has them, that 30%, 35% of the field has them, and they just go, get that 1 or 2 points. And then you see a defense that you weren't on, but you're like, oh my gosh, why wasn't I on that defense?
Other times, I'm like, I never would have
been
been on that shit. No way I was on that. So whatever. Like,
yeah,
half the time, I'm like, I was
the week I learned that I'm not playing chalky defenses anymore was that week when the Broncos were playing the backup quarterback, and everyone was playing the defense that was against that quarterback who wasn't even really a quarterback, and they didn't really do anything. And so ever since then, I'm like, you know what? That was the ideal situation for that, and I don't care about that anymore.
By the way, I think that defense was like priced up above 4K too. It was like the most expensive defense in the history of DraftKings, and we're all like, "Fuck it, I'm paying $4,500 for a defense. It's a lock." And of course,
never again.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah. For me this week, I'll just give a couple. I'm not going to give all mine. The defenses that I like a lot. The one that I'm kind of gravitating more and more towards, it's $100 cheaper than the Jags this week, is the New Orleans Saints. Tennessee coming in. A lot of people think that it's going to be a Hopkins show. I don't think so. He's going up against Marshawn Lattimore this week. I think Lattimore can shut him down. I know it's Nuke, and Nuke he's fresh with Tannehill. This is a fresh matchup, with him, with having Tannehill as a quarterback. I don't see the pairing this week. I think they have to have a couple of weeks underneath their belt to get gelled. I think Lattimore will have a very good game in this showdown matchup with Nuke. And I think New Orleans at home is your Millie Maker special defense. Another one, it's an obvious one, but it's going to be very difficult for a lot of people to get to salary-wise, is Baltimore Ravens this week. I do like the Ravens paired with an Andrews as a secondary stack. And I also really like, we've seen this in the past. It could actually happen in this week's slate. Depending on how they actually handle the offense with Munkin, is a Lamar naked with just the defense on Baltimore. That could actually be a good pairing there. I know it's not something that is normal, but if you feel that need where you have to get really different on a winning Millie Maker lineup, it's a large field GPP. It's nothing that you get too crazy with in your small fields. Other defenses that I like this week, the Rams going into Seattle, looking at them as well with the Akers, pairing them and Akers together.
Rams. It's just so out of the ordinary. I love it.
It is.
So you've mentioned a few underdog defenses. Is that a thing? Like, have you noticed that we don't play them very often, but every once in a while they pop up? Like, is there some reasoning behind that mathematically?
Yeah, we've seen it last year. There was a lot of, and then it's been in the past too. A good portion of the underdog defenses, when they go on the road, they actually do have good performances, and we have seen them in winning Millie Maker lineups more often than not. So I could see these types of defenses. There's a couple of them that I gave there. Green Bay is another one. It's your 1-to-1 offing of Washington this week. And then the one that's probably going to go way under the radar and they're playing Josiah's team is Atlanta Falcons this week. I don't think anybody's going to roster them much. I think they go 3% and lower, but they could win the tournament this week at 3.2K.
I don't mind it.
Yeah, those are cool.
I like targeting defenses against young, turnover-prone quarterbacks or mistake-prone quarterbacks whenever possible. That's not the only way a defense scores, but if a QB is turning the ball over, that is certainly helping our case, right? So, of course, the Commanders, for that reason, they're going up against Dobbs or whoever the hell's starting over there, and that dude is not very good. But you got the Jaguars going up against Richardson. Richardson very raw, and he's like Fields' first couple games where it was just scary bad. You're like, oh my God, how is this person even in the NFL? That's what we'll probably see from Richardson. I like the kid. I love him. He's great. Personality, spectacular. Interview, amazing. But it's, you can't change the fact he's barely played. He's barely thrown footballs, and he's just super raw. And then you're right. Atlanta going up against Young. I like Bryce Young. Everybody like Bryce Young. He looks like a polished quarterback, but Trevor Lawrence came out, looked like shit his first season in the NFL. Like, we got spoiled by Herbert, but usually these guys look terrible. So you got to take your shots on those situations. And the best of them all is the Ravens. If you can afford to pay up to 4K, I don't like to pay up on defense. BobbyWow, you're a pay up on defense guy?
No, I'm not. And I think don't be afraid of the floor here with the Texans. I think you could make a case for rostering the Texans defense. This is going to be a grinded out game. And Lamar is not fresh. I mean, Lamar missed a bunch of time, and he's not afraid to turn the ball over. So 2,100, I mean, you look at the DS, the spread on the projections is small. And so that, to me, that tells me, that's another indicator to me that it's okay to think about paying down in bigger tournaments. So I will be rostering the Texans in some of those lineups.
Yeah, and I know I mentioned earlier I don't like playing the chalky defenses. I still have these defenses in my player pool. I'll still have exposure. I'm just not going over the field on them by much. That's why I usually play it.
Statsational, I had him on the game plan earlier this week, and we were talking about the Commanders, and he's like, I have to fade it. He's like, you fade the top owned defense. You just fade it. And I was like, what? But they're in such a good spot. I don't care. I'm fading it. Like, he just does not care. That's a good approach to how to attack DFS in general. Like, have certain rules that you just do. And I don't care how good the spot is. I don't care how great it looks on paper. He's like, and the way he described it was just like, I've tested my projections for defense for years, and it's the least correlative with outcomes. Meaning, defense projection is shit. The one who the optimizer throws into your lineup is probably not the right one. And it's so impossible to predict that you almost have to like use chalkiness as your inverse model, where you're like, hey, if it's high owned, I'm out. And then if it's low owned, let's look for some spots. But yeah. I don't know if
that doesn't mean go crazy and just X out every top owned player. You got to be a little strategic and have a method behind the madness with it.
But that's important to remember. That defense, there's the most variance with defense because it's so touchdown turnover heavy. And so we saw it last night with the Chiefs, right? The Lions defense was almost in the nuts if it weren't for a couple plays at the end. So I totally agree, Geek.
Yeah.
There's a lot of variance, and fade the chalk.
I love some of these Jets fans out there. By the way, 183 live viewers. That is pretty darn good for the first episode of the year. So smash the like button, guys, if you enjoy this content. We're going to be back with you all season long. Remember, if you're not signed up, if you're currently watching this, right, at the very least, subscribe to the YouTube channel. You're watching this on YouTube, you get all the content that comes out, all the free stuff, the good stuff. If you want to get into DFS Army and check out what we have, our tools, the optimizers you saw on screen, all that great stuff, guys, this is the time. There's a couple days left for the big preseason promotion, 15% off the monthly dues. Promo code NFL23 locks that in. So make sure you're doing it now. I've had to get in there. We want you to get the discount. We also have a free month. You're watching this, you're like, I don't want to pay for a site, or you don't have the funds, or you kind of want to check it out first. Use this tab right here. there's a free month offer right here on the DFS Army site. You click on that, and it shows you all these different DFS sites that you can sign up for and get a free month, and it shows you how to do it. And the reason I like it is because don't send us $50, $70 for a subscription, $100 if you don't feel good about it. Make a deposit on one of these sites, play it. Play it on Sleeper. Sleeper's awesome. Like, play the pick'em game there. Use that $50, try to turn it into $100. Then you got your month for free. So use our tools and make it more, because we have tools for all the pick'em sites. I didn't even talk about the Proptimizer tool. It's fucking glorious for Prize Picks and other games of that nature. So make sure you check us out. Guys, I appreciate you. Any last words before we bounce and start making those lineups?
Yeah, I'll mention that Burns, Razzle, and I will be together this Sunday at 11:30 p.m. or 11:30 a.m. Eastern for the pre-lock show. So we'll be around to give you all help if you all need some help making some lineups and stuff.
Guys, make sure you guys check that out. The pre-lock show is awesome. You can ask questions. They will answer them in real time. You know how during this, the scroll was a million things happening. We're running the show. In the pre-lock show, it's a Q&A. So you get to those questions answered. Make sure to check it out. BobbyWow, last words.
I would say don't be afraid of the double stack here with some of these quarterbacks. That Dolphins game environment. I mentioned Durham Smythe, which is understandably ugly. Another guy there, going big and small on the double stack with a guy like Tyreek Hill. Braxton Berrios. He is min price. He is going to be on the field a whole bunch, and for whatever reason, he tends to produce when he gets a chance to play. So
I'm weirdly interested in Berrios.
So take a look at those double stacks, especially with some of these QBs that are on the higher side.
I like it. Burns, last words. Buy my book.
Buy my book, but what you'll learn in the book is develop a process for yourself. Utilize that process. It's got to be repeatable. It's got to be adaptable. It's got to be sustainable. And guys, if you can't do anything else this season, do that. Formulate a process, because it takes time. We all four of us have really refined processes that we utilize on a weekly basis, and we build our player pools from that. So I honestly, if you get anything out of the book, I hope you get that and every aspect about each positional play within the book. But please format a process if you do not have one. Otherwise, you will not win any money.
I like it. All right, guys. That's going to do it. Tournament Tactics NFL Week 1 will be back with you all season long, Fridays at 5:30. Make it your stop. Mark it down on your calendar. Friday, 5:30. I'm hanging with the boys, talking lineups. For DFS Army subscribers, I will be back tomorrow for the Players Club. Usual time, around noon. Get your blue moons out. We're going to build lineups together. We're going to go through the whole slate nice and slow. We're going to take our time, drink a couple beers, make some lineups, have some laughs. We're going to have a good time. We'll see you guys next time. Appreciate everybody for listening, watching, and being here. Take care, everyone.